You're now listening to Crypto Files, and welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the most controversial coins of them all. You either hate it or you love it, and that is the one, the only XRP, created by Ripple, who is currently being sued by the SEC primarily for this coin. They are saying that Ripple sold XRP as a security, and I'm crossing my fingers that Ripple actually pulls it off some way, somehow, because I've been investing in XRP since 2017. So before we get started, I do want to remind everyone that this is not to be taken as financial advice. My content is for entertainment purposes, so don't go trading any of your crypto or NFTs based on my content. Now, we can't talk about XRP without talking about the current financial systems network, which is being used as of today, which is called SWIFT. What does SWIFT stand for? Well, it stands for the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. That's a mouthful. Well, it's a Belgian cooperative society which acts as a middleman for financial transactions between banks all over the world. So if you've sent a wire transfer in the past, or you've sent money from a bank to another bank, chances are that that bank is using the SWIFT network. They're going to ask you for three things when you do that. Usually it's your account number, routing number, and SWIFT code. And the SWIFT code represents the bank that it's going to, and that is it. So one thing I do want to say is SWIFT doesn't actually transfer the money. They don't transfer the funds. When you go ahead and do a wire transfer, many times I imagine that they debit my account and then they send the money, and the money travels throughout the network and it finally gets to its destination. Not quite. SWIFT doesn't send any funds. They don't settle any of the transactions, and they don't hold any of the accounts for the banks. So how does this work? Well, whenever money is being moved, they send a message. That's all it is. It's just a message, and it's quote unquote a payment order. So when Bank A sends $10 to Bank B, they're sending a payment order for $10. When Bank B receives that payment order, they say, hey, I got the message loud and clear, and I'll settle the request, and then I'll go ahead and credit the corresponding account that you've indicated in this payment order. But where does Bank B get the money to credit the individual who was indicated in the payment order? Well, Bank A actually holds an account with Bank B. Remember, SWIFT doesn't hold any accounts, and they don't settle anything. All they do is just send the messages. So when Bank B receives the request, they debit the $10 from Bank A's account, which is held at Bank B, and those are just funds that are sitting there. And then they go ahead and move it over to the recipient's account, and they get credited $10. And that's how it works. So if we go to ripple.com, we can see that they say efficiently, easily, and cost effectively move money to all corners of the world. Whoa, hold on. I thought that was only possible with SWIFT and the services that they sold. Well, that's not the case. Discover why hundreds of financial institutions choose RippleNET to provide a better payments experience and enable greater economic opportunity for everyone everywhere. RippleNET, what the heck is RippleNET? Well, let's take a look. It's a new era of finance. The power of RippleNET, decentralized infrastructure, so the payments are sent in and around 7 seconds. Remember, there was a lot of complaints with SWIFT that it takes up to 3 days, maybe more. It was buggy, and it would just take such a long time. Modernized messaging, 100% transparency, similar to what SWIFT is doing. That is also available on RippleNET, and liquidity solutions, $0 in pre-funding. Remember how SWIFT doesn't hold any of the accounts, doesn't settle any of the transactions, and banks no longer have to have accounts with each other that are pre-funded in case they need to move money around. So that is huge, because that just frees the banks from actually, money that's being held in those accounts, and they're just money that's just tied up. Now they can go ahead and use it, and there's no need for that anymore. As more banks join, these services become even more decentralized in their infrastructure, and I'll go into a little bit more details, but RippleNET makes it easier than it's ever been to run a high-performance payment business. With the most advanced blockchain technology for global payments, financial institutions are able to expand into new markets around the world and even eliminate pre-funding by leveraging the power of XRP through RippleNet's On Demand Liquidity service. So we see the word, RippleNet, we see On Demand Liquidity service, and they do mention the actual native coin. But what is it that Ripple's actually selling to these banks when they're meeting with them, shaking hands, signing contracts, and obtaining clients? They're not really so much selling the actual XRP coin, but they're selling the services that are possible through the XRP Ledger, which is RippleNet and the on-demand liquidity. Now, the XRP Ledger makes these services possible, but the Ledger uses its native coin, which is XRP, to make that all possible. So when you hear individuals say, hey, what if the banks make their own coin? They don't have to use XRP with the XRP Ledger. Well, that's not the case. You have to use XRP on the XRP Ledger. So if we look up here, we see the payments network, we see RippleNet. Let's go ahead and learn more. And then on the right hand side, it says RippleNet services. So if you have this service as a bank, this is what they were doing. They were making deals with banks and they were selling RippleNet. And so a lot of these banks were saying, we're not ready for cryptocurrency. We don't want to know anything about it. This was back in 2017, 2018. They were saying, okay, no problem. Don't worry about it. And so later, once banks were a little bit more open to cryptocurrency, the RippleNet services, so they sold RippleNet, but the services that now banks can go ahead and add on to RippleNet are these services such as on-demand liquidity. So what is on-demand liquidity? On-demand liquidity is actually what delivers the instant cross-border payments without pre-funding. And that's where banks really, see it says free your capital, and you got to contact their sales teams. But that's where banks really become interested in this service, because then they don't have to have pre-funding accounts. Everything is settled through RippleNet. On-demand liquidity is available for them to transfer funds all throughout the entire world. So the XRP Ledger is public and decentralized in structure. So when anybody says that it's actually just a centralized blockchain, centralized coin, it really is not. The coin is used on the XRP Ledger, but the actual blockchain itself is open source and it's open to anyone to build on, maintained by a community. So it's not a bank that's maintaining the blockchain or approving the transactions or settling the transactions. Remember, it's the XRP Ledger, which is the blockchain, doing all the work just like any other blockchain. And the banks are just using those services that are being sold that run on this blockchain. And those services are being sold by Ripple. There's streamlined development, so there's tons of tools and documentations, like I said, for developers to jump on here. Ultimately, the benefit from this is that it's at a very low cost. So to run a transaction is just a fraction of a penny. So there's not going to be a need for a layer 2. There's no issues with things that we're seeing on Ethereum at the moment. And there's proven reliability, over 8 years of consistent performance, over more than 63 million ledgers, and that is plural. Why? Well, if we look at the documentation of the actual ledger, let's make sure we understand why it says ledgers. The payments are the payments are processed, and every time there's a new block that is found, they actually refer to them as ledgers. And so when we refer to any of the blocks that have been found, or not even found, because this is not mining, what am I talking about? But when the blocks are created, the XRP Ledger processes transactions in blocks called ledger versions, or ledgers for short. Each ledger version contains 3 pieces: the current state of all the balances and the objects stored in the ledger, the set of transactions that have been applied to the previous ledger to result in this one, and there's metadata as well. So whenever you see that terminology on their documentation, just know that they're talking about the blocks that are being processed on the actual main ledger. Now, XRP is the native cryptocurrency of the XRP Ledger, and all accounts in the XRP Ledger can send XRP among one another, and you must hold a minimum amount of XRP as a reserve. That's only 10 XRPs. There are some services that are not possible without XRP. So some advanced features of XRP Ledger, such as escrow, payment channels, only work with XRP. So there's debates online that people say, well, what if the banks create their own cryptocurrency? Then they don't need XRP. They can just use the XRP Ledger with their own cryptocurrency. That's absolutely incorrect. Most of the important services that are advanced and what makes XRP very special is that the XRP ledger needs to work with XRP. So that is what makes XRP different. It beats everything that Swift is at the moment, and I'll be making more and more videos on XRP. There's so much to unpack here, but they recently went ahead and added support for NFTs, so we should be seeing NFTs on this blockchain, and there's just a ton of information for developers to go ahead and build on top of the ledger. So the big takeaways is it's super fast, super efficient at a low cost. It is open source, and you know, there's no central government, or there's no central bank that's actually processing the transactions or taking control of what transactions can happen on the XRP ledger. And that is huge. Remember, Swift was selling the actual software and the services to actually send and receive those messages to transfer funds. They weren't settling any of the transactions, and they didn't hold any of the accounts, so people couldn't receive, banks cannot receive the actual messages if they don't use their software. Other than that, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and like the video if you guys like the content, and I'll be making more videos on XRP. Have a good one.